Gentlemen, we are back once again for another fine episode of the Ferris Wheel Rock Show. I'm one of your co-hosts and co-conspirators, Ferris Kennedy. And in a booth to the left of me, a man that goes to bed by polishing off a 60 of Jack Daniels.
Dr. Ian Clark, it's true.
And a man who got kicked out of his own house for walking around naked in the kitchen while drinking milk.
Stephen Wheeler.
All right, gents.
God bless him.
God bless you. Yes, your mother called me and said it was a very disturbing scene.
Not as much as for my aunts that were there too.
Oh my God, those poor ladies, you know. Sometimes you just think you're alone. So, gents, what do we got going on today? Some, what do we got? Current events again?
Yep.
Events. Yeah, what's happening?
Current events. Actually, good news, ladies and gentlemen, for all you Foo Fighter fans out there. David Grohl announced that there is going to be a new album coming out in the late fall of 2020. They're changing it up a little bit. Apparently, he said, quote unquote, that it will sound like David Bowie's Let's Dance, similar to that.
Let's Dance.
Dun, 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 dun. I don't know how I'm going to take that. Let's Dance is a very good album, but Foo Fighters doing it? Yeah, all right.
Okay, well, you know.
I hope it's better than Concrete and Gold, I'll be honest. I wasn't a big fan of the Concrete and Gold.
True.
So that's one of the current events. And then another one, it's a little bit of a fun fact from good old radio station here in Ottawa. Shea 106 produced a fun fact on the Guns N' Roses, which was done by Heather Williams, who is one of the girls in there. And it is a list of 6 fun facts of Guns N' Roses.
Sure, go ahead.
These are pretty crazy.
Sure, more than 6. Right?
So Slash basically got his nickname from a family friend because he was always in a hurry. That's one of the reasons. Yeah, I don't know.
That's a boring way of
saying it. I know. Yeah. Before taking up guitar, Slash was mainly interested in BMX riding and competed at a professional level.
That actually makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Axl Rose is actually an anagram of oral sex.
Okay.
Yeah. Duff McKagan actually took an economics class to better understand his residuals, and he became an expert on the subject, which led him to getting his own column for Playboy.com in 2009. Yeah. Believe it or not, before he joined Guns N' Roses, Axl Rose was so hard up for cash that he joined a UCLA medical study where he was paid $8 an hour to smoke cigarettes.
That explains a lot.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, that explains. And then according to information put together by concerthotels.com, Axl Rose has a greater vocal range than known singer-songbird Mariah Carey.
Okay, well, I mean, Mariah Carey has basically been singing the same tune for 30 years, so we don't really know her range.
But it's pretty cool if you're like, you know, some sidebar of like the divas, you know, she's up there with Celine, she's up there with Anastasia.
Dolphins.
Well, certainly, actually.
Dolphins.
No, not the Dolphins. Dolphins in general. She can reach those high frequencies.
Oh! So I like that. That was pretty good. So
and Axl's a diva, so
yeah, true.
He is a diva, so yeah.
Although divas usually have like clean hair.
Oh, they usually don't have to shave, but they should
shave.
Many of them wear kilts, though. Yeah, it all fits together.
Yeah, so that's what I got on current events.
Wonderful, thank you very much.
So what do we got on the hot topic there, Wheels?
So I've been looking at some stuff online, and there are so many of these bizarre articles on bands better than the Beatles.
What the?
Oh yeah, I can name you about 20 of them.
What's wrong with you?
It's F demented. What key isn't it, Robbie?
Exactly.
I'm surprised Ringo knew what a key was.
I mean, it was F demented. No one really knows that.
I still think Johnny Hutcherson was a better drummer. Whatever.
No.
So I decided to bring a few of them together, and so we'll see a little top 10 of different ones that we'll discuss amongst ourselves.
Okay.
So one that comes up in almost every one of these things is Led Zeppelin. So
as better than the Beatles.
As better than the Beatles.
Are they going record sales or?
No, well, that's the thing. Like, depending on the poll, sometimes it's record sales. Sometimes it's sheer power. In the case of Led Zeppelin, it's a singer that has a voice that can like basically throw a wall down because he can reach banshee levels.
Plant could peel paint.
And you have like a top tier guitarist who does these amazing riffs.
True.
You have a master bassist and a keyboardist to fortify the background, and a master drummer, a mighty drummer. So the idea here is that Led Zeppelin 4 is probably one of the most legendary albums.
True.
And thus should be something that brings them over the Beatles.
Wow. Gee. I mean, it's almost like entering a court system. I mean, there's pretty good evidence. When you really think it through, though.
Are you a defense or crown?
Yeah, really.
Are you prosecuting?
Oh, are we in Canada? Yeah. It is crown.
It is. Is it crown? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll say this, that Led Zeppelin 4 is classic, but so's Abbey Road, so's Revolver, so's I don't know, about 4 or 5 classic albums put up by the Beatles from about 64 and up to 1970. Look at Led Zeppelin. Always struck me as a musician's band. Like, they were John Paul Jones. All these guys are really good musicians.
True.
The Beatles were very good, but they weren't great musicians.
Well, their voice apparently they were like rough, and George Martin said that they didn't really sing out it. They sang out of tune, really.
Well, yeah, but you can't compare like George Harrison to Jimmy Page. You can't really compare Paul McCartney singing to Robert Plant. Like a Ringo, God help me, to John Bonham.
And the other thing we have to know also is Led Zeppelin is much more sampled in hip hop than the Beatles. Their music is more sampleable.
Yeah, really.
If we can put it that way.
There's something to that, but better than the Beatles. I'm not going to go for cultural influence here. I'm just going to stick with music. And for rock and roll, okay. Maybe, why don't we get this out of the way right at the beginning? And I'm going to shock some listeners, but I'm in full disclosure mode. I never really considered the Beatles a rock and roll band. I considered them a pop band.
That went rock, kind of.
Yeah. And I considered the Rolling Stones a rock and roll band.
I was considering blues, actually.
Yeah, bluesy. Like, singing Brown Sugar or whatever. The Beatles sing stuff like Penny Lane or Fool on the Hill. This is pop music. It's not really rock music for me. It's not guitar-driven, 3-4 chord riff stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I would say Zeppelin's a better rock and roll band than the Beatles. Yeah, okay, I can accept it.
Rock and roll band? Yeah, I'll take it because their Please Please Me album.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I tell you something.
So basically, the Beatles are the link between the 50s and the 70s.
Yeah, that's it.
If we go that way.
50.
That's good.
Yeah, you're right, actually, because what, 62?
62 to what, 70?
Yeah, but I was talking more musically, like.
Yeah, no, they brought in
rock, and towards we could say prog rock, but not really either.
Heading toward prog.
Yeah.
I think they were. You know what? It's unfortunate that they. I personally feel that when John said he was going to leave, if I was Paul, I was going, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
Go. You know what? You take you and your little
Yoko
toy
too.
there. We'll get you there. Ringo, you're going to start playing bass. We're going to call Johnny Hutchison in here. Billy, you're full time now as a pianist. And you know what? I underestimated George, and that's what Paul would have said, right? Well, yes, thank you very much. I underestimated George, and now George is going to be the John, and we're good.
But see, unfortunately, if we do that, we lose all the Monty Python films from the 70s.
That's true.
But you know what? I'll be honest. Honestly, we're on the Beatles topic.
True.
I still feel, and Ian, you could disagree with me. I still feel that if Paul would have, I think, listened to his heart and just had more faith in George because they underestimated him, I think if he would have just continued onwards, and I'm serious, bring in Johnny Hutch, keep Billy Preston, teach Ringo how to play bass. I think they
Ringo, my bass might be a stretch, but
you know what I mean, though.
I think a tambourine.
I think they could have actually gone.
Yeah, and the Beatle fans out there know this is kind of a background running debate. Could they have done a few more albums with John going off with Yoko? Because right after Harrison had this incredible burst of creativity, right? And Ringo even came up with some good covers of some oldies. And of course, McCartney had, My Love and those songs. So maybe they could have done one more.
Mm-hmm.
But Lennon, this is the thing too. Everyone's very defensive, of course, with Yoko. You don't want to say anything. But when you look at the history, it really does look like Yoko Ono broke up the Beatles.
Did she?
Sorry.
Well, she accelerated it at the very
Yeah,
least.
she was an accelerant, as they say in chemistry. She really did it.
I found it really annoying when you look at some of the videos and she's just there, like almost like half asleep on a mattress. Like, get out!
And that was,
Like, go get a job.
The Toronto Festival. Remember when John came with Klaus Wuermann and these guys?
Oh, that's the name.
Yoko,
Thank you.
Yoko was up there on the stage, and I always felt sad for Lennon. He's just kind of pulling faces behind her, like it'll be over soon. And but I guess he needed it. It was John, etc., etc. But without Yoko, who knows? There probably would have been another Beatles album.
I'd like to go back into time and I don't know, Hogan leg drop her, and maybe John wouldn't meet her. And I probably would threaten John and say, listen, here's what's going to happen, okay? 1980 is going to be a bad year for you. So if I was you, listen to me, okay? You're going to hang around here, and you're going to take in Billy Preston full time, and so I would threaten him. I'd be like, you know what, man?
You don't need to threaten him. Just buy him an apartment in Montreal, and he'll be safe.
No, but you know what I mean, though? Like, I wish I could go back into time. You can't rewrite history. But if you could just, you know what I mean? It was such an awesome band. And you can never go wrong on buying a Beatles vinyl.
No.
You can't. You can only go wrong if you buy the CD for $30. But
Especially if you have to donate the damn thing that evening.
never go to that store again.
We're talking about one at Ottawa Record Store.
It's not Crosstown. Crosstown's a good one.
It's closer to
So-
Second Avenue.
Before we get sued, let's go to the next one. The Rolling Stones
Are better than the Beatles?
are better than the Beatles.
Maybe longevity-wise.
Well, exactly. They've been at it for more than 50 years. And Keith Richards is a science experiment.
He's dead, right?
Well, for a while.
Well, he died in '69, and I don't know what's there now, but no.
He came. Yeah, I would call them a better rock and roll band. Yeah, sure, I'm fine with that.
Well, you could say they're a better blues band, R&B band, country band, folk band, and to certain people, reggae band.
Wow, that's a stretch. Yeah,
That's a really big stretch, but you have to give it to them. They've been at it for 50 years.
I know.
The first 25 were really good.
Last 25 are a little thin.
I'd say the first 8 was good.
Yeah, really. So, yeah, I mean, but again, rock and roll, sure, and they did a bunch of genres, sure. But one of the problems with the Rolling Stones is inconsistency. Pick up some of their albums, and you say there's 10 songs. 2 are really good. 8 are kind of all right. I guess whatever. It's the Stones. They're not consistent that way. The Rolling Stones as songwriters, Jagger, the Glimmer Twins, just can't keep up that level. Sorry, it was McCartney and Lennon, for some reason, right to the bitter end, are writing stuff like Long and Winding Road. And I don't know how they did it, but they did it.
And they hated each other, apparently.
I don't know if they hated, but it was just like a resentment. And I don't know. But the idea is that never happens. You don't keep getting better and then break up. Usually you plane out. And it was fun while it lasted, so you have a good life. The Beatles went out with Abbey Road, one of the best albums ever put out.
That's $24.99 on fire. Next.
So, the next band, the Velvet Underground.
See, I don't know too much about this band. I know, Ian, you talk about this. That's the album with this banana on the cover, right?
Yeah. The Warhol banana. Velvet Underground, I'll say this. No, I'm going to go against this one because I think what whoever put this list together is talking about is influence.
Exactly. From what I've gathered, it's they were pioneers of manipulating, harnessing, and experimenting with the very limits of sound. And they are basically the proto-punk band to a certain extent.
Yeah, I'd say that's good.
And also the masters of heroin rock to a certain extent.
Yeah, they used to call it heroin chic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone looks really drugged out. Yeah, they're very influential. There should be a line, see if I can pull it out of memory, that Velvet Underground didn't sell a lot of albums, but every album they sold started a new band. And there's a lot to that, because Lou Reed and John Cale and these guys knew 3 or 4 chords, it seems, but they put out stuff like Sweet Jane, later covered by Metallica, and they were really good at that stuff. And Nico.
I was going to say, without Nico, I don't like him as much.
Nico was this weird German actress thingy who was in a few, was a Fellini movie or something, and she was just a Warhol person, but she was an interesting, she's gone now. But she used to talk like this. She used to sing like that too. Yeah, she was singing with this very heavy German accent. She went with.
Yeah, she's like Schwarzenegger as a woman kind of thing.
Yeah, she's an interesting person. She went with Jim Morrison for a while. Oh, what's going on? I hear you knocking.
Oh, hello.
And now it's time for Ian's Knock, a little segment we like to call Affairs with Macho, where Ian himself will rant and rave about books, reviews, musicians, artists, people, or whatever just does not go his way of acting. Who knows? You might be on Ian's Knock, 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 Knock.
I'm going to read you something. This is 13 years old, but it speaks to my heart. It's from the Daily Mail, September 2007, and it's called Superstar Hypocrite. Meet Sting, the master of contradictions. And I'm just going to read it to you quickly, ladies and gentlemen. If you're driving, you want to pull over, but it could put you off the road. He boasted of his solid marriage, but has been caught in a brothel. He's also green, but is paid to advertise gas guzzling limos. Meet Sting, the master of contradictions. Although never short of a few words of wisdom for the rest of us on carbon footprints, saving the rainforest or third world debt, he could be described as an adherent of the old adage, do as I say, not as I do. And a 40-year career which has earned him a personal fortune of more than £100 million. Sting has established himself not just as a pioneering rock singer with his original band, The Police, but as one of the first stars to parade his social conscience. Some of his lyrics seem to touch on much vaunted support of recycling and conservation at a time when many consider these to be fringe issues rather than the global preoccupations they are today. It was the theme to which he would return at the live Earth Climate Change concert, where the reunited Police were among the leading attractions on the bill. At one point in the performance, he pledged to the audience he would, quote, work to reduce his carbon footprint in the future. A commendable objective. But what Sting didn't mention was how much larger his carbon footprint is than anyone else's. He maintains no fewer than 4 properties in the UK, with his core home, the 800-acre Lake House estate in Wiltshire, which boasts 14 bedrooms and 8 padded. You know what an acre is? An acre is about 60% the size of a soccer field. This is an 800-acre house. Okay.
Holy jeez.
A glimpse into Sting's daily routine at the mansion was provided by Jane Martin, a cook who took the rock star and his wife, Trudy Styler, to an employment tribunal when awarded her £24,000 following her dismissal from her job. According to her, Styler in particular was, quote, a grandiose ego who wanted to be treated in a royal manner beyond her station as just an actress. Revealing some of the fabulous lifestyle of her former employers, Ms. Martin said that, quote, opulent extravagance reigned at their house and that there was, quote, no regard to expense, cost, or wastage where food and drink were concerned. The cook added that she often had required to make expensive rail and taxi journeys between London and Salisbury just to purchase a soup and salad meal for the family. But Sting's well-heeled lifestyle in the Wiltshire countryside is only one part of his worldwide empire. The same paragon of self-denying minimalism who reminds us not to squander our resources also owns a 3-story mansion in Highgate, North London, a townhouse in Westminster, and what's described as a workman's cottage in Lake District. He also maintains a beach house in Malibu, California, and a 600-acre estate in Tuscany. And when Sting performs in New York, he goes home to a $1 million duplex on Manhattan's exclusive Upper East Side. In 1992, Sting learned that a company that manages this wealth was stealing from him up to the tune of £13 million, and he didn't notice.
Oh Lord!
He didn't even notice. My God, Sting would confess later it passed him by. The man who stole it from him, a man named Moore, said that he always judged Sting to have a low attention span in meetings, and therefore an easy hit. Such insouciance over his affairs was surprised many people who think that he described him as being able to micromanage every aspect of his career. But perhaps it's only one of the paradoxes about the singer who's rarely been burdened by consistency. Early in his career, he expressed the opinion that, quote, I just don't agree with procreation anymore. I think it's bullshit. I think if we carry on thinking like that, we're doomed. We have too many people. we're not the most important thing on the planet, and until we realize that, we're all in deep shit. Okay, Sting has 6 children from 2 wives. This guy hasn't quit. In 81, he declared, I don't want to end up as the guy in Vegas with the balding head and the tux singing Roxanne. Some 15 years later, after making this announcement, he walked out on stage at MGM The Grand in Las Vegas, sporting a radically cropped haircut, and performed his first hit, Roxanne. In 1995, he was happy to accept a £500,000 fee to advertise a golf complex in Japan, where developers had flattened miles of historic pine forest to build a luxury leisure resort. The contradiction of the man known for his environmental campaigning, helping to promote a project the locals complained harmed the local ecology, wasn't lost on his critics. More recently, the singer gave his blessing to an advertisement for a gas-guzzling Jaguar that used his hit Desert Rose as the backing track. He was paid a 6-figure amount. Oh. Some of this may not seem entirely in tune with his well-known views on energy conservation. Even his attitude to the police is marked by inconsistency. Despite the regular recycling of the group's records since their last hit in 1983, he has said he will never get back, quote, it's all bullshit, I'd rather die than reunite. Of course, they reunited, and each of them made £4 million, about $8 million or more, a piece for their tour. Folks, that's from the Daily Mail back in 2007. Now you can see why most reasonable people want to jam Sting down a sewer pipe. Now you know why the late Pope John Paul II once declared, quote, Sting should be hunted down like a rabid dog, flayed with tire chains, and be reduced to a thin red jelly, unquote. And those are harsh words, especially from a pope. But he was a wise man who knew the score, and that's all today from Ian's Knock.
Yeah. He had probably the greatest collection of the Police.
Roxanne!
Roxanne!
You don't have to, but yeah. The Pope knew what he was talking about, and Sting, every time I see him, I saw him on the tube about 2 weeks ago, it just tightens my gut, and I can't figure it out. But this guy, and this is 13 years ago, nailed it, right? He put it together.
I wonder how the Quebec version of Roxanne would sound.
Well, like you said, basically.
Roxanne!
No, hey, Roxanne. You don't have the light.
You gotta have the...
Je pense que les autres lights.
Il faut que vous pensiez vraiment à Roxanne quand la lumière rouge. En tout cas, vas-y donc, Wheeler.
Well, speaking of hypocrites, another one that comes up in bands better than the Beatles, U2.
I think it's because the Joshua Tree just solidified them in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's my only answer I have for that, and I think a lot of people agree with me.
U2's a puzzling band, and they have this weird cred because Bono, I mean by that I mean Sonny Bono.
His name backwards is Onob, just thought I'd tell you.
It kind of fits, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
He's political.
Well, there's
he has
that.
an agenda. And so he gets this kind of street cred for that.
All right, so U2.
Cool. People say it's their TWD, their total world domination aspect of the band.
But they're all over the place. Though honestly, they're just like you blink, you won't miss them because they're still there. Like they're everywhere.
Not only that, if you own an Apple product, they'll appear in your iTunes without you asking for it.
I heard about that.
Yeah, but you know what? To defend them a little bit. I don't have an issue with them.
No.
They've been around a long time. But put it this way. Whenever there's a world charity thing happening, so AIDS Research Foundation, MS Foundation, starvation, they're always the first band to say, yeah, we're in. We'll do the tour. We'll do the charity. We'll do the benefit concert. Any kind of benefit. Like, were they not there for Live Aid?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, name me a band that thinks twice on doing it. They don't think twice.
I know.
No.
They
do it.
They do it, and they're commendable for that.
And it's not for money. I don't think they give a shit about money. They don't care.
Well, not at this point.
No. But even early in their career, I think they were just happy to be acknowledged. But I don't think they care.
They're a political band.
They are.
Yeah.
That's fine. But they're all Bono and The Edge. They're also irritating people. Not so much The Edge, although I question the musicianship sometimes of U2. I never thought I always thought like a garage band that got lucky, or how they know how to use pedals or something.
Something like that.
Yeah, no, but like I said, like, whenever there's a benefit, they're there, and they don't blink,
True.
and they don't, they don't ask, and I think their demands are not like crazy like Van Halen's, where they only want like the red M&Ms or something. All right, go ahead, Wheels.
So the next one is Radiohead. I'm slightly puzzled why this would come up.
I don't know why they're even on there. It's just Tom York.
Well, I think it's because
really.
they're alt rock gods, really. When you think about it.
I'm not. Yeah, there's nothing really to talk.
This is
about.
a guy that shunned the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yes.
There you go. He didn't want to go.
Well, maybe he's got a good route, but no, I wouldn't. Even with influence, I don't know. It was musicianship.
Well, late 90s, early O's. They were everywhere.
The zeros,
The
man.
zeros.
I mean the zeros.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not gonna go there.
No, me neither, really. Another name that comes up a lot is Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Oh,
You know what?
please.
I'm tired of him.
Well, poor guy.
I know, but
How? I mean, let's go influence. No.
bad haircuts, yes.
Yeah.
But you're right.
Actually, they compare him to Fine Bordeaux. The group gets better with age. Which...
What? Oh, shut up.
Shut the front door. Ferme la porte en avant, s'il vous plaît.
No, I mean that's just
No.
I always thought he was extremely limited.
I think he just got lucky. The whole story about the Traveling Wilburys, the only reason why he got in there is because Harrison forgot his guitar at Petty's place. And, by the way, starting a band, you want in? We need another filler.
I know the whole thing. I don't know.
Well, you have to remember, these lists are mostly American, and he's very American.
Yeah.
God rest his soul. He
of
did.
course.
He's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He did write some good music, but let's just everyone's a refugee to him, right?
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
refugee.
I don't want to live like that.
No, me neither.
Yeah.
Another name that comes up a lot on some of these lists is Rush, which people call Revenge of the Nerds.
I think it's just making fun of Geddy Lee because he looks like a nerd.
No, but they have a musical nerd and a literature nerd vibe to them. when you
They
think about
are-
it.
Yeah, they do. But
You know.
I don't see this for compositions. Yeah, for musicianship, but listen, it's rock and roll. Some of the best. The Stones aren't great musicians. So what?
But I think the thing with Rush is because it's a Canadian band, and they had such a hard time, and they finally made it, but it took a while to break through the American border.
Yeah.
It's not like certain bands like Nickelback, as an example, as a Canadian. No, I'm just using it as a Canadian band. They've hit the American border 10 times over. The Hip, they didn't really care for the American border because they gained all their success through Canada.
Yeah.
But then the northern states caught on. You know what I mean? So I know why Rush is on there.
Yeah.
Just because of it probably says the way they had to do breakthroughs or something, right?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. So what, they started in 68?
Yeah, they go way back.
No, they go way back. And they also say, well, the longevity for a prog rock band, usually prog rock fizzles after a few years. They lasted almost 40 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even though Neil Peart passed away, if he didn't pass away, I think they probably just would have still toured.
Maybe. Yeah.
Because they just did it for to get out of the house, right?
But
And it's the influence too. I mean, so many bands in Canada have been influenced by Rush.
And movies.
Indirectly.
Even the movie there, I Love You Man with Paul Rudd. The Rush is in there.
That's true.
And I think Paul Rudd even said it's one of his favorite bands. Him and Jason Segel. I think it was one of those two. It's one of their favorite bands. So it's kind of, as Canadians, it's kind of cool that there's American actors out there that like a Canadian band as one of their favorites. So kudos to them that they broke that barrier. Because you know how it is. Once you break the American barrier, you're in.
Yeah, it's true. I just don't get it with you can't. It really is apple and oranges. They're two different entities, totally.
Completely, yeah.
Rush and the Beatles, nothing to do with each other.
They don't even sound the same.
They're not even the same business.
I don't think they're even influenced by each other.
No,
probably not.
Nothing in common.
But they were around at the same time for 2 years, overlapping.
Yeah.
I'm
Not
just
the
going
same-
68, right?
Not the same hemispheres, though.
No,
I mean,
frig.
I can remember Rush in North Toronto playing little rippy dip clubs.
Geddy Lee was working at a bookstore?
Pretty well.
The next one on the list is The Band, which is an 80% Canadian band to a certain
Pretty
extent.
well, yeah.
Which they say basically they paved the way for no depression kingdoms, such as the Dixie Chicks, the Eric Clapton, the Woodstock sound, basically the 60s, and the fact that they backed Dylan.
Lee Von Helm was there, right?
Yeah, he's from Arkansas.
He's the American.
He's the one American.
And the rest of the other four are Canadian.
Canadian guys, yeah.
Robbie Robertson. Yeah. What key isn't it, Robbie? F demented.
Pulled in the Nazareth. Yeah, I don't agree with that in terms of influence or songwriting abilities.
I pulled into Lac-Simon.
No, I don't. I think he's being a little bit controversial.
Probably.
I don't think that's true.
Next one is The Clash.
Oh,
which is funny because Joe Strummer was extraordinarily anti-Beatle.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. Another political band.
Political band, and one of those bands that you never thought was going to be around long. There was something so pumped up about them, so energetic. They weren't going to be one of those 20-year bands.
No.
They just flamed. And they used to call them the only band that matters.
And they were pretty cross-genre, which is...
yeah, they had kind of reggae stuff. They had rock and roll.
Ska.
Pop.
Yeah.
They had some pop stuff, but influential as the Beatles. Gee, I don't know how you'd measure that. Listen, no group in the history of the planet is influential as the Beatles. Songwriting? No. These guys just didn't do it.
I like to say the Beatles were influenced by the Isley Brothers, considering the Isley Brothers were the ones that wrote and performed Twist and Shout before the Beatles did. Just thought I'd throw it out there.
I'm going to throw a correction in. I have to disagree with it. They didn't actually write Twist and Shout, but they performed it.
So, and the last one, which I think gives us a hint that a lot of guys from Jersey were behind these number.
No, come on.
Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band
with Max Weinberg and Steve Van Zandt.
Born to run and shout into a microphone.
What was the guy there? Clarence Clemens? Yeah. The big man, they called him. Right?
The big man. Join the band. No. I don't think. Here's the thing about Springsteen is he's a talented guy and he does 17-hour shows and stuff. But in terms of influence, really, you tell me who Bruce Springsteen's influenced. He's influenced himself.
Mostly, yeah, that's true.
I mean, who's he influenced? Like, give me
Jersey Shore.
Like Ed Sheeran. Give me somebody. I don't see his influence anywhere. I think he's self-contained.
Yeah, you're right. I don't think he influenced anybody.
Well, he just came along and did kind of Phil Spector's productions on his, Born to Run and Hide in a Hole, and that was about it. So what? Were you listening?
You look like a rabbit with an ear turned towards the predator.
I'm hearing something.
What do you hear?
Ian usually hears these things.
What do you hear now?
I think we hear some jazz music. Is that right?
You know what? It's a tinkling piano.
And now, Yes or No with Ferris Kennedy, the segment where the sick, drug-addled mind of Mr. Kennedy forcibly asks Dr. Clark and medicated Wheeler yes or no questions about classic rock, and you get to hear the sick, drug-addled answers.
Makes my knees freeze.
So what we're going to do, we'll start off with Wheeler today, considering he is talking about who is better than the Beatles. So speaking of Beatles...
What a silly man.
Wheeler, do you own any Beatles vinyl? Yes or no? Oh, right. Which album, out of curiosity?
The Blue Album. That's it.
The Blue Album.
That's
the greatest hits.
Oh, they had the 67 to 70. Yeah, that's a good album. Double LP.
You're lucky.
Wheeler, do you think that the Beatles could have continued on without John Lennon?
Yes.
All right. Wheeler, do you like Trent Reznor as an artist?
As a producer, yes.
Okay, as a producer.
Or does it hurt?
Oh,
I shot myself today.
No, was it shot? Yeah.
No,
I cut myself today.
And I'd say also as a soundtrack artist.
All right. Wheeler, is it true that you said that Ronnie James Dio is not an attractive man?
Yes, but I'm not the only one.
Okay. And,
would you date him? Yes or no? He was alive.
And the last question for you, Wheeler. Was Tommy Iommi very influential for the continued success of Black Sabbath?
Yeah.
All right.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Dr. Clark.
Yes, how may I help you?
Was Quincy Jones a better producer than George Martin?
Oh, that's a great question. That's a really good question. I wish a better producer, pound for pound. This is gonna again, pull the car over if you're listening to this. I'm going to say pound for pound, Quincy Jones was a better producer than George Martin. Yeah.
Okay.
I heard of it actually saying that.
Do you think, is Def Leppard's drummer Rick Allen a better drummer than Ringo Starr? Yes or no?
Okay.
No, be serious.
I know. But
given the situation.
This hurts again. I hurt myself. Yeah, he's a better drummer than Ringo Starr. That hurts. But sorry, Ringo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Considering, remember he had to reinvent himself, right?
Yeah.
The whole accident there, and the band actually waited for him 6 months to recover and reinvent himself. Yeah. All right. Were the Ramones hideous?
You mean as artists or looking?
Look, sorry, in their looks.
Okay, as someone who saw the Ramones live,
or smelled them.
No, they were physically repulsive, but it added to this weird grungy charm they had. But they went out of their way, I'll add this, to be offensive looking. They weren't spending a lot of time in a barber's chair. They were the first guys I ever saw with ripped jeans purposely. This is like 77. Everyone else had perfectly ironed with little pleat jeans, and these guys showed up skinny as sticks. So long answer, yeah.
All right. Ian.
Yes.
During the years of our friendship, can you say that there is music you listen to now due to my influence?
Yeah, there is. And as an aside, folks, I don't know, maybe last year or the year before, I learned to play a Foo Fighters song and was really surprised at the sophistication of the chords and the timing of the chords, of the song rather. And so yeah, just from that alone, it was impressive.
Excellent. And the last question, Dr. Clark, is Winnipeg the center of music in Canada?
Interesting, eh? Time to talk to Randy Blockman about that. Yeah, I would say absolutely not. No. Unfortunately, the center, I'll enhance it, is Toronto. It just is. It goes back to the 60s.
I think it depends on the periods. There are periods where it's Toronto, some periods it's Montreal, some periods it's Vancouver. Vancouver, very short periods.
Yeah, because then they had tried.
But I think I have to agree with Dr. Clark that probably Toronto.
It just is.
That's where the money is.
The money's there. The recording studios are there. The
population.
Yeah, I was thinking recently of as a quick aside. There used to be the Cameron House still there. I'm not sure down on Queen Street West, but they had the alt country guys. This is in the 80s. There was a guy named Handsome Ned who's long dead from drugs. But I used to see him there, and it was another time. It was an exciting time. So, Toronto is responsible for launching the careers of a lot of successful bands, not just, Canadian. U2 showed up. You're talking about U2. They showed up there and played some gungy bars in Toronto. They were nobodies.
They even played for Canada as a favor to Paul Martin back in the day.
True, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Paul Martin is actually very good. Former Prime Minister Paul Martin is good friends with Bono.
I probably wouldn't admit that. But okay.
So that's
Thank you.
that's all I have on my question. So so now let's go back to Wheels' list. I'd like to add because we got almost 8 minutes in time, and I believe there's also a review coming up shortly. So I want to add a couple of bands that I'm gonna basically piss people off with, because this is my personal opinion. I love the Beatles, don't get me wrong, but if I had to throw bands just to start war, which I will, and please email us at theferriswheelshow@gmail.com. We'll be more than happy to rip you a new one myself. I think
Email him personally.
AC/DC, I think, would probably have to be on there. Longevity. They are better than the Beatles.
Well, they're a better Australian band than the Beatles.
Yeah, they are.
They're better at staying together, kind of, than the Beatles.
It's it. Foo Fighters is a better band than the Beatles. That's just my opinion. If you don't like it, well, too bad. You could put a sock on it. And what else could I say? Oh, I don't know.
Look at your record collection. You probably think Van Halen's.
Absolutely. Dive Her Down. It's a good Newfoundland album, right? I'd have to say Van Halen. Well, just again, longevity, right? Not saying quality, because a lot of Van Halen's songs are not all that great.
No, they're not. Good point.
But I'm just throwing out 3 bands out there that if you look at longevity, and it's not due to because anyone got sick at the time of their career, it's just they decided to part ways because of some girl issues,
Or drug issues, or
but that's just me. Now, Ian, you might say the Doors.
Yeah. The Doors, in terms of influence, you know what? The funny thing about the Doors is they're almost more influential since they broke out. Well, since
True,
the
yeah,
band
actually.
stopped. It's bizarre, but I'm part of this Facebook group with I think it's called Fans of Jim Morrison. They're a strangely influential band. Like the kind of offbeat celebrities like Johnny Depp and these guys are really into the Doors. They haven't played together in 50 years.
Yeah, but that's one of your favorite bands, though.
Yeah, but it's bizarre. So I'm saying in terms of influence, the Beatles are pretty well untouchable, but the Doors are getting close. They're into movies and they're into soundtracks, and the band does not stop. They're a money-making machine. So influence, yeah. In terms of compositions, nah, I wouldn't say so. It's too idiosyncratic for the 60s. Songs like The End and all that stuff. Yeah, they can't touch Let It Be or
Yeah, but then let's do a flip side here. Wheeler, Pink Floyd, you'd probably say is a band that you probably like more than the Beatles, and that's just
I've listened more than the Beatles.
It's because I know you personally for a lot longer, and I know that Pink Floyd is one of his go-to bands, and I believe Sabbath, early Sabbath, probably not later Sabbath, Ozzy Sabbath. Let's just
exactly.
Right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's so many bands out there. Now if you talk to my dad, he'd probably still consider the Beatles up there, and then the Stones and CCR, Led Zeppelin, and Supertramp.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it takes a weird turn, but remember,
well, it's his late teens to his early 30s.
But like Ian said, because it's a 5-year gap between you and my dad, that's a huge gap for music.
In terms of music.
Absolutely. Hey, look at my spouse, 6 years difference. Her music tastes are shit.
That's true. It's good. Quite accurate.
So,
we have it on tape for the marriage counselor now.
Yeah, whatever. Do you guys hear something?
Oh, hello.
The music at night, it sounds bright on Wheeler's turntable. He shines a light, he keeps his vinyl in sight, and gives you his magnificent review. Now here's a clue we have for you. It's time for Wheeler's Vinyl Review.
Music from Big Pink. So it's what you cover Fruit of the Loom.
Big Pink.
So Big Pink is the band seminal album, one of them, and it's just been remixed for the 50th anniversary by Capitol on 180-gram, 45 RPM LPs.
You like the 180 grams, you. It's like 3 vinyl reviews in a row. You get the 180s. I have no idea what that means.
I'm not it's not so much I'm a fan of them. It's just that often enough when they do reissues, it's on 180 because there's this myth.
It's just a myth.
That it's better.
Okay.
And like I say, it's a myth. Some companies, it's actually true.
Yeah.
But often enough, it's a crapshoot. It's just based on the idea of weight. So if you have a shitty turntable, a weightier disc is less prone to dancing around. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But it's not true that a 180-gram record will always sound better.
No. Total myth.
All right, go on.
So basically for the 50th anniversary, they went and hired a sound engineer named Bob Clearmountain, which is a guy who has really great experience with remix.
He's very famous.
And he's actually have had the opportunity to find the original multi-track tapes.
Well, that's interesting.
So he's actually doing an incredible remix from a lot of this, but unlike a lot of other engineers, a remix for him doesn't mean what they did, for example, with Sgt. Pepper, where you have 3 tracks and you have to play around with them. And so this is actually more of a sound restoration. So Bob Clearmountain is actually very polite, let's put it that way, with the original material. He basically takes the original mix and cleans it up and makes it. He's kind of like a surgeon. He does nips and tucks.
Yeah, right.
But no facelift.
So that's your way of putting it. Yeah.
Exactly. Apparently, if you listen to the weight on this album compared to the original pressings, it sounds so much better. Basically, everything's more clear, especially the vocals. And so basically what he does is he isolates the vocals, isolates the drums, and isolates the bass, and makes them all sound a lot better. One of the things he does is usually puts the drum in the middle, which is counterintuitive to people who listen to 60s records.
Yeah.
Because usually the drum was, on the right side usually, or the left?
I don't know. They would pull it off, yeah. All Ringo stuff is in there.
If demented.
If demented.
I made a joke.
So it's basically what he does is he makes the bass not as present as you could hear on the original pressing. Again, because we've talked about this in other shows, we now have much better turntables than we did 50 years ago. More sensitive sound system, so you don't have to do all these engineering tricks that you used to
If I could
have.
hop in, it's a
Sure,
good
go ahead.
point. When people started remixing stuff, you always kind of tighten up for a second, saying, well, in some cases the artists are dead. Maybe that's not what they wanted. But a lot of these remixes, you're right, are in response to current technology. It's not a reinvention of the album. You're not re-editing a book like Gone with the Wind or whatever, some classic. It's the same analogy. You're just printing on better paper.
Exactly. So for collectors out there, this to a lot of critics' ears, this actually sounds better than a lot of original pressings. If you have a really insanely expensive sound system, there is the Mobile Fidelity label, which is known to produce these incredibly high-grade records. That edition apparently sounds a little better than this one. But seriously, unless you have maybe not 50, but $15,000 invested in your sound system, you won't hear the difference. So go for this one. It sounds incredible. Again, though, a little warning, it's 45 RPM, so that means you get off your ass a lot more often than you would on 33 and a
Is the
third.
whole thing 45?
Yeah, the entire thing is 45.
So it's a 12-inch vinyl.
No, it's a normal size.
Yeah, the 12-inch one.
12-inch, yeah. But it's 45.
spinning at 45.
It's spinning at 45, so
I got a
That
couple
is
of those.
cool.
I have a couple of that spin at 45, and I even put myself little notes on it when I just put a paper
right.
clip on it that I put play at speed 45, 12-inch LP, long play.
That is really interesting.
But unlike, unfortunately, other new editions, the cover here is not as nice. It's
that's it then. I'm just teasing.
I know some people. I mean, the cover is really important. It's not bad, but when you compare it to some stuff like the Beatles stuff that's been coming out, or CCR, you can see it was a quick job. Not a quick and dirty, but a quick job. So, music from Big Pink. This is the reissue from Capitol.
Thanks very much.
Fantastic.
That was really good. Yeah, wonderful.
That's beautiful. And thank you for that, Wheeler. And as we have to say, it's now time for us to go.
To go.
So, to the right of me who's wearing nipple clamps.
Stephen Wheeler.
And to the left of me that's
not wearing.
I have wires on those. I'm gonna tug them.
And a man who's got a bottle of scotch in his hand, ready to go.
There's chipped ice beside it, Dr. Ian Clark.
And the one who likes to make fun of F demented Robbie. That's me, Ferris Kennedy. Good night.
Good night.